Managing a code base, especially in the open source world, it can feel like a never-ending marathon.
Absolutely.
Issues, they just pop up faster than you can squash them, and then PRs start piling up.
Right.
Keeping up with it all can be a real headache. But what if you had an AI teammate that could handle some of those tasks?
That would be amazing.
That's the idea behind Maige, right?
Yeah.
Open source platform designed to bring the power of natural language processing to code-based management.
It's like having like a co-pilot for your code base.
And so it's still in alpha,
Right. As of today, February 2nd, 2025,
but over 3,300 repositories are already using it.
including some really, really big names.
Yeah, like Highlight.io, Cal.com.
Some really impressive early adopters there.
All right, so walk me through how this whole thing works. What happens when I connect my repo to Maige?
Well, the first thing Maige does is set up a webhook. So think of a webhook as like a little digital messenger that alerts Maige whenever something happens in your repository, like a new issue being opened or a pull request being submitted.
So it's constantly listening for changes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so what does it do with that information?
It creates something called embeddings of your entire code base.
Embeddings.
Yeah. So these embeddings are like numerical representations of your code. They allow Maige to understand the context of what's going on. It's not just blindly following instructions. It actually gets what your code is all about.
So that's how it can actually make decisions based on the content of the code base.
Right, exactly.
And then on top of that, it also creates like a secure sandbox environment.
Yeah, where it can safely execute code and test things out without messing with your actual code base.
So it's like a little virtual playground to tinker and experiment.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how it connects. But how do you tell it what to do?
Well, that's the beauty of it. You write rules for Maige using simple, plain English.
Oh.
So, for example, let's say you want all UI-related issues to be automatically assigned to a specific developer on your team. You could write a rule that says something like, Maige, always assign issues labeled UI to, and then the developer's username.
Okay. No coding experience needed, just good old-fashioned English. I like that.
Yeah.
Can you give us a few more examples of what those rules might look like?
Absolutely. So imagine you're working with sensitive environment variables.
Right.
You could create a rule that automatically flags any pull requests involving .env files and requires approval from the maintainer before they can be merged.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That adds like an extra layer of security right there.
Exactly.
It seems like there's quite a bit of potential for automation here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You could even have Maige automatically review incoming pull requests based on the guidelines that are outlined in your contributing.md file.
So it's not just assigning labels and automating tasks.
Right.
It can actually interact with pull requests, review code, and enforce best practices based on your specific guidelines.
Exactly. Yeah. Think of it this way. If you can do it manually in the GitHub UI, there's a good chance you can automate it with Maige.
Oh, wow.
And the best part is because it's open source, you have the flexibility to adapt it to your unique needs.
Right. And in the source material, it mentions it can label issues, run code in that sandbox, review PRs, and a whole lot more. Sounds pretty versatile, but how does it actually interact with GitHub to do all these things?
Maige works by interacting with the GitHub API. It's designed to be flexible and find a way to accomplish the tasks that you define in your rules. It essentially acts as a bridge between your natural language instructions and the actions that need to be taken on GitHub.
And I really like that one line in the source material that says, Maige works flexibly with the GitHub API to find a way.
Yeah.
It's really emphasizing how adaptable the platform is.
Exactly, yeah. What's remarkable is that it's not limited to a predefined set of actions. It can leverage the full power of the GitHub API to get things done.
Which means it can also evolve with GitHub Right as they add new features and functionality.
Exactly, yeah.
So we've covered how it connects, understands your code, executes your rules. What about some of the specific functionalities that are mentioned? We've already talked about the auto-labeling, the auto-assigning. It also mentions things like auto-commenting, custom instructions, even code review.
Yeah, those are all part of its core feature set. What's really exciting is that it's not just about automating those routine tasks. It's also about improving the quality of your code and the efficiency of your workflow.
Right. It sounds like it could be a real game changer, especially for those larger, more complex projects where managing contributions can be a real challenge.
Yeah.
But with all this power and flexibility, I'm sure our listeners are wondering about the all-important question of cost.
Yeah. Well, here's some good news. Maige offers a standard plan for $30 a month, And to sweeten the deal, you get your first 30 issues completely free.
Oh, wow.
So it's a great way to try before you buy and see if Maige is the right fit for your project.
I love that you get to push it to its limits before you have to actually commit to anything.
Yeah,
And there's an enterprise plan coming soon, right?
for those larger teams out there.
Okay. So there's an option for everyone. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I have to ask about self-hosting. Is that a possibility with Maige?
Well, self-hosting isn't officially supported just yet, but if you're technically inclined and comfortable navigating the potential challenges, you could give it a shot.
But be warned, you might encounter a few bumps in the road.
That's a good way to put it.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. Connecting your repo, writing rules, how it works, pricing, and even self-hosting. What's the most important takeaway for our listeners?
I think the key takeaway here is that Maige represents a paradigm shift in how we manage code bases, and it has the potential to transform the way developers work, especially in that open source world. But it's important to remember this is still early days for Maige. It's in alpha, it's evolving rapidly, and there's a lot more to come.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Even in its current form, it's already making waves, and it's going to be really fascinating to see how it continues to develop and mature in the years to come.
Yeah.
But beyond just the technical features and functionalities, there's a bigger question at play here, isn't there?
Absolutely.
The rise of AI-powered tools like Maige, it raises some fundamental questions about the future of software development.
Yeah.
What does it mean for the role of human developers?
Right.
How will it impact the way we collaborate, the way we build software? What are the ethical considerations? These are all questions that we need to grapple with as we move forward.
For sure. Yeah.
Those are important questions, and they're not easy to answer. I think that's what makes this whole topic so fascinating, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about the technology itself.
Right.
It's about the broader implications for our industry and for society as a whole.
Yeah. And that's something we'll continue to explore in more depth as this deep dive continues.
Okay.
But for now, we'll leave you with this thought. AI is no longer a futuristic concept. It's here. It's real. And it's changing the way we work. Tools like Maige are just the tip of the iceberg. And the future of software development, well, it's going to be shaped by those who are willing to embrace these new technologies and explore their full potential.
That's a great note to end on. We'll pick up the conversation in part 2, where we'll delve deeper into the potential impact of AI-powered tools like Maige and explore some of the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. Stay tuned.
Sounds good. So picking up where we left off, let's dig into some of the potential long-term impacts of AI-powered tools like Maige on open source development.
Okay.
We've talked about efficiency, but what about innovation?
Right.
Could this lead to faster innovation cycles?
That's a really good question. If developers can offload those tedious tasks to an AI assistant like Maige, theoretically, they'd have more time and energy to focus on, the creative, the more challenging aspects of software development.
Right.
That could lead to more experimentation, faster prototyping, and ultimately a quicker pace of innovation.
Exactly. And it's not just about the speed of innovation, it's also about accessibility. Could a tool like Maige lower that barrier to entry for new contributors to open source projects?
I see what you mean. Contributing to a large open source project right now can be quite daunting. You have to navigate complex code bases, understand the project's guidelines, and figure out how to contribute in a meaningful way. So if an AI assistant could help with some of that initial onboarding and guidance, it could make the whole process much smoother for newcomers.
Yeah, imagine a scenario where a new contributor submits a pull request,
Right.
and Maige automatically checks it against the project style guide, flags any potential issues, and even offers helpful suggestions for improvement
Yeah, that could be huge.
for both the contributor and the project maintainers.
It's like having an experienced mentor kind of guiding you every step of the way.
Exactly.
It could empower more people to get involved, which ultimately benefits everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
Now that brings us to the flip side of the coin, the potential risks. What happens if we become overly reliant on this AI assistant?
Yeah, that's a valid concern. One potential risk is that developers might become complacent and lose some of their core skills if they're constantly relying on an AI to do the heavy lifting for them. It's like any tool, it can be incredibly useful.
Right.
But if you don't maintain a certain level of proficiency yourself, you could become too dependent on it.
Exactly.
Mm.
It's crucial to strike that balance between automation and human expertise. Developers should view Maige as a powerful ally, not a replacement. It's about using AI to augment their capabilities, not to diminish their role.
Exactly.
And what about the risk of bias? We've seen examples of AI systems perpetuating existing biases in the data they're trained on. How do we ensure that Maige doesn't introduce unintended biases into open source projects?
That's a critical point. It's essential for the developers behind Maige to be mindful of those potential biases and to design the system in a way that mitigates them. Transparency is key here. The more open and accessible the algorithms and data behind Maige are, the easier it'll be for the community to identify and address any potential biases.
So it sounds like a collaborative effort. It's not just up to the creators of Maige, but also the community of developers who use it to ensure that it's being used responsibly and ethically.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a shared responsibility. And it highlights the importance of ongoing dialogue and collaboration between AI developers and the broader open source community.
Okay, so we've explored some potential benefits, we've explored some risks.
Yeah.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about implementation. For organizations that are interested in integrating Maige into their workflows, what are some practical considerations?
One key consideration is customization. Maige is highly configurable, which is great because it means you can tailor it to your specific needs. But it also means you need to invest some time up front in understanding how to configure it properly.
So it's not just a plug-and-play solution. It requires some thought and planning to get the most out of it.
Exactly. You need to think carefully about the rules you want to create, the actions you want to automate, and the level of control you want to maintain. It's not about handing over complete control to the AI. It's about defining how you want it to assist you.
It's about defining the boundaries,
Right.
setting those expectations for what it can and should do.
Exactly. Another important consideration is training and adoption.
Right.
Introducing a new tool, especially one as powerful as Maige, can be a significant change for a team.
You can't just drop it in their laps and expect them to instantly become experts.
Precisely. Organizations need to invest in training their developers on how to use Maige effectively. And just as importantly, they need to create a culture of support and collaboration where developers feel comfortable asking questions, sharing their experiences, and learning from each other.
It's about fostering that learning environment where people can experiment and explore its full potential without feeling overwhelmed or intimidated.
Exactly. And let's not forget about communication. Organizations need to be transparent with their teams and with the wider community about how they are using Maige, what benefits they expect to see, and how they are addressing any potential risks or concerns.
That transparency is key for building trust and ensuring that everyone feels comfortable with the changes being made.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we talked about customization, training, and communication. Anything else organizations should keep in mind?
I think it's important to remember that implementing Maige is an ongoing process. It's not a one-time thing. You need to be willing to iterate, to experiment, and to continuously learn and adapt as the technology evolves.
It's not about setting it and forgetting it.
Nah.
It's about actively managing the tool, monitoring its impact, and making adjustments as needed.
Exactly.
And it's open source,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
So you can contribute to its development.
Organizations have the opportunity to contribute to its development, to share their experiences, and to help shape its future.
It's about being an active participant, right?
Mhm.
Not just a passive consumer.
Exactly. So we've covered a lot of ground in this part. We've talked about potential impacts, risks, and practical considerations for implementation. Where do we go from here?
Well, I think it's time to look ahead. What does the future hold for AI-powered tools like Maige? What are the next frontiers?
That's a fascinating question, and one that we'll delve into in part 3 of this deep dive. We'll explore the potential for even more advanced capabilities, the ethical considerations that will need to be addressed, and the broader implications for the future of software development. Stay tuned.
We've talked a lot about what Maige can do today,
Yeah.
but what about the future?
Yeah.
Let's look ahead. What does the future hold for AI-powered tools like this? What are the next frontiers?
Well, the future of AI in software development, it's brimming with possibilities. And tools like Maige are just the beginning.
So where do we go from here?
Yeah.
What are some of those next frontiers for AI-powered code-based management?
One really exciting area is the potential for even more advanced code understanding. Imagine a future where AI can not only understand the syntax of your code, but also the intent behind it.
That would be incredible. It would revolutionize the way we write and debug code.
Yeah. Right now, Maige is great at following instructions and automating tasks.
Right.
But what if it could proactively suggest improvements to your code, or even anticipate those potential bugs before they occur?
It'd be like having a coding partner. Right.
Yeah,
that can see things you might miss, offer valuable insights
exactly.
based on its vast knowledge of code patterns and best practices.
And as AI models become even more sophisticated, they could even start to generate code themselves.
Whoa, 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 hold on. Are we talking about AI writing entire software programs? That sounds like something straight out of science fiction.
It might seem far-fetched, but we're already seeing glimpses of this, with tools that can generate basic code snippets or even entire functions based on natural language descriptions.
That's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But all this talk about AI writing code, it raises some pretty big ethical questions, doesn't it?
It certainly does, yeah. As AI becomes more involved in software development, we need to think carefully about issues like ownership, accountability, and bias. Who owns the copyright to code generated by an AI? Who's responsible if that AI-generated code contains errors or security vulnerabilities? And how do we ensure that AI systems don't perpetuate existing biases that we already see in the tech industry?
Yeah. Those are complex questions, and there's no easy answers. It's going to require a lot of thoughtful discussion and collaboration between developers, ethicists, policymakers, to really navigate this uncharted territory.
Yeah. And beyond the ethical considerations, there's also the human element.
Yeah.
What happens to the role of the developer in a world where AI can write code?
Right. That's the question on everybody's mind.
Yeah,
Is AI going to replace human developers altogether?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I believe the future of software development lies in a collaboration between humans and AI.
Right.
AI will handle those repetitive and time-consuming tasks, freeing up developers to focus on the creative, the strategic, the problem-solving aspects of software development.
It's like we were saying before about Maige. It's not about replacing developers. It's about augmenting their abilities.
Exactly, yeah. The best software will be created by teams that can effectively harness the power of both human ingenuity and AI capabilities.
So for the average developer listening out there, how should they be preparing for this AI-powered future?
The most important thing is to stay curious, stay open to new technologies, and be willing to adapt and evolve. Learn about the latest advancements in AI and explore how they can be applied to your work. Experiment with tools like Maige, see what they can do, and think about how they can enhance your workflow.
It's about embracing the change and not fearing it.
Exactly. The future of software development is full of exciting possibilities, and it's up to us to shape that future in a way that benefits everyone.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Maige and the future of AI in software development. We've covered a lot of ground, explored some fascinating concepts, and I think raised some very important and thought-provoking questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, this has given our listeners a glimpse into the incredible potential of AI and, hopefully inspired them to think about how they can be a part of this technological revolution.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this journey,
Thanks for having me.
and we'll see you next time for another deep dive into the ever-evolving world of technology.